goes live every day at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. It is my 10 a.m. session. I am a California attorney going over current events from a legal perspective and giving you answers to your questions in the chat. It's not legal advice. If you are looking for legal advice, you need to speak with a lawyer one-on-one, share all the facts and circumstances of your case with the lawyer, and then get that feedback that's legal advice. The information I share with you on this stream is general in nature only. It does not apply to any one specific fact. And just because I say you might have a case, or because I think that a lawsuit is strong or weak, does not mean that you have a case. You need to consult with a lawyer. So with that said, let's go into the current event for today from a legal perspective. Today we are discussing the federal lawsuit that alleges that the city of Portland has failed to uphold the Americans with Disabilities Act by allowing tents on the sidewalk. That's right. There has been a massive amount of tents on the sidewalk in the city of Portland for many years now. There are homeless camped out there, and one of the reasons why they are there is because of a prior ruling by the Ninth Circuit that's discussed in this article that basically says that arresting someone just for sleeping on the sidewalk is cruel and unusual punishment under the Eighth Amendment. You can't just punish someone for just sleeping on the road or on the sidewalk or any public place. That's just cruel to do. If someone doesn't have a place to sleep, you have to let them sleep. So in other words, people have a right to sleep. You cannot arrest them for just sleeping, for having somewhere to sleep. So what has happened in the city of Portland and in other cities around in the Ninth Circuit is that the city has stopped arresting or enforcing or moving anyone who is sleeping on the street in a tent. So here's a picture of a tent blocking a sidewalk. These are people who are living here right on the street because they have nowhere else to go. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but we won't discuss them. That's beyond the scope of this stream. What we're discussing in this stream is we're discussing this federal lawsuit that alleged the city of Portland, by failing to house the people who are sleeping in the tents on the street, by failing to house them, they are violating the Americans with Disabilities Act. Specifically, the lawsuit's argument hinges on a section of the Americans with Disabilities Act that identifies sidewalks as a service, program, or activity within the city that must remain accessible for those with disabilities. It goes on to state that the city has failed and continues to fail to maintain its sidewalks clear of debris and tent encampments, which is necessary to make its sidewalks readily accessible to people with mobility disabilities, the lawsuit reads. It goes on to say, indeed, a substantial number of city sidewalks, particularly those in the city's busiest business corridors, do not comply with applicable federal statutes and regulations because they are blocked by tent encampments and attendant debris, rendering the city side of the sidewalks inaccessible, dangerous, and unsanitary for people with mobility disabilities. So, legal perspective, there are several things going on in this situation, and it's all surrounding the homeless issue in Portland, and it's also going on in California and in many other states where there's just an explosion of homelessness. Actually, in many other states across the country, it's not going on. A lot of people are coming out west because it's warmer, the climate's better, and there's reasons for being out in the west versus maybe the East Coast where there's snowstorms and there's other issues. So there is a lot of homelessness on the West Coast. And the way that cities have dealt with that is to either allow people to just sleep on the sidewalks, or they have just kind of allowed that to build up, and then they'll just move them all somewhere else and arrest them and put them in jail or whatnot. And that is really a short-sighted solution. And the Ninth Circuit has actually said that just doing just that is a violation of someone's rights. So that has left the city with little options other than to just allow people to sleep on the sidewalk. One of the issues going on in California right now is the lack of temporary shelters that exist to house all the hundreds of thousands of homeless that live here in California. That is because the state is way backed up on building its permanent supportive housing, which is the program that is being promoted by the state government to help the housing shortage is permanent supportive housing units. These are units where homeless can become unhomeless. That doesn't mean they have to participate in any drug rehabilitation, but those services are offered as part of permanent supportive housing. But they did not build enough permanent supportive housing, and they stopped building temporary shelters on the basis that temporary shelters really are inferior to a permanent position for someone who's chronically homeless. In any event, what we're dealing with here today is the Disabilities Act and whether or not people who are walking on the sidewalk have a right to have the sidewalk clear so that they can actually walk from point A to point B. If you don't have a disability, you can easily step on and off curbs. You can go around these homeless encampments. You're fine. You have a way around. But someone who is in a wheelchair or in a walker or needs assistance, they can't get through. So these lawyers are alleging that the city has violated their rights under the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, by failing to allow them to come through. To the extent the city may be unable to clear the city sidewalks of 10 encampments due to the constraints imposed by Martin versus Boise, we seek an order requiring the city to construct, purchase, or otherwise provide for emergency shelters in which to house the unsheltered persons affected by the court's judgment. So the court is asking the federal judge, hey, if the city, if Martin versus the city of Boise, which is the name of the case that holds arresting people for sleeping on the sidewalk is unconstitutional under the 8th Amendment for cruel and unusual punishment. If the city cannot, move people and is constrained because of that restriction, then the court is being asked to provide these unsheltered persons. I'm calling them homeless. They're calling them unsheltered persons with, shelter, emergency shelter. Something like a temporary shelter or someplace where they can sleep because it's cruel and unusual to move them and to, arrest someone just for sleeping on the sidewalk. Well, that's my current event for today. It's an interesting situation. It's where two federal laws may be intersecting, a constitutional right to sleep and also the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it might cause a city to become liable. We don't know. We're going to have to see what the judge does in this situation. This is a federal lawsuit, so it's going to affect any state in the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. We will go ahead and take a look at what states it's going to affect. Arizona, California, Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, Oregon, the East District of Washington, the West District of Washington. These are the federal judicial districts. Here it is right here. Here's your map. So anyone who's living in any of these states, it may become a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act requiring the city to build emergency shelters to shelter people so they do not sleep on the streets, so that people with disabilities can traverse the city. I don't know. I haven't seen the evidence of this. I haven't been in Portland. Well, we can go ahead and take a look into Google and we can go ahead and see what kind of encampments we're dealing with here. Portland, homeless, sidewalks. I don't know. We just type this into Google because Google's pretty good. Here you go. I mean, this is what we're looking at here. This is a full-size image. We can see if we can pull it up for you. I'll zoom in here using my zoom bar. Okay, so yeah, if somebody's walking down the street here in this part of the city in Portland, I don't know where this is. This is an old town neighborhood, it says. Something's blocking it here. You can't really get through if you have a wheelchair. How are you supposed to get across the street? How are you supposed to get to where you need to go? Get to the bus stop or wherever you need to go? I mean, this is serious stuff. So maybe we will get a ruling that says a city must take efforts. If they have these types of encampments, there must be resources that are put into, clearing the roads, making sure it's safe to traverse, making sure people with disabilities have a way to get through, to get to the bus station, to get to the rail station, to move about their day. I don't know what's going to happen with it. We're going to have to follow it. I'll definitely check back on this channel. I'm going to mark this lawsuit as something that we're going to follow, so that if you're part of this channel and you tune in here, if you're watching, I definitely encourage you to subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell. so you don't miss out on these discussions that we have daily about current events from a legal perspective, things you're going to want to know, things that are going to affect your life. If you have any questions, just leave them in the chat. I'm monitoring that right here. I have the chat up right here. This is through Restream.io. Basically, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitch, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, anywhere you are, you can go ahead and ask a question in the live stream right now. It's going to show up right here. Everyone else is going to be able to see it. So be careful what you ask. If you put specifics of your case in the chat, it may be that it's discovered through litigation with the opposing counsel. So be careful. Stay anonymous. Be smart. Remember that anything that I give out on this channel is not legal advice. It's general information only. I'm a California attorney. I know a lot about the law. That's one of the reasons why you're going to want to listen to me. But it's not legal advice. It's just informing you more about the world so that you understand what's going on. The important story for today is the homeless encampments in Portland. It's affecting the entire West Coast, particularly California, Oregon, and now I believe Washington State has quite a bit of issues as it warms there. So we're just going through some of these photos. We're just taking a look at some of these encampments right now. Look, here it is in the snow. And, this is the reason why a lot of people live in California is because the snow in look, it doesn't snow a lot in Portland, but it snows there. It's cold. It gets cold in the winter. It's at a northern latitude. So, versus Southern California where a lot of homeless live. There's a huge issue in Southern California with this, with this. So if you're a homeless person, if you're someone with a disability, you might have the right to bring a lawsuit. We don't. Well, you certainly have a right to bring a lawsuit. We don't know if you actually have a right to have the city clear these things, and if the city of Portland will actually be enjoined, which basically means that an injunction will issue that basically the judge is saying, hey, you have to build homeless shelters, you have to do this or that. Now that's a big stretch to have a judge tell a city how to manage its population just because a few people are claiming a violation among the under the ADA. How far is that order going to reach? Does it reach all people with disabilities? Does it reach just these people? Where are they walking on the street? What streets are they walking on? What has to be cleared? I mean, how broad is this order that they're asking for? Is it that, everyone in the city, if you are homeless, has a right to shelter in order to keep them off the street so that it doesn't avoid other people's disability rights? I think generally my opinion of the lawsuit is that it's very broad and that it's probably not within the judge's discretion to tell the city particularly how to deal with the issue. Then again, I could be wrong. I was surprised to hear that sleeping on the streets is, an absolute right under the Constitution. Just growing up, the way that I thought about homeless, the way that everyone was taught to think about homeless is that, they were, doing something, they've done something wrong, or they're just somebody who's undesirable. I think that people are becoming more enlightened now and realizing that that's not completely the case, that people who are homeless have become homeless because something has happened to them, or they've been down on their luck. They may have mental illness. Many of people choose to be homeless though, and they're addicted to drugs, and they don't have any other illness other than they just don't want to participate in society like we all do. And we should have the freedoms to do that. But when it turns out that they're deciding to participate by using drugs on the sidewalk, I think that's where we all draw the line. So in any event, the city doing something about this issue, whether or not the federal judge says they should, we all know that something should be done. So that's my important story, my current event from a legal perspective this morning. It looks like I have one viewer on Twitch. I am not finding any viewers on YouTube, but that does not mean I'm going to stop streaming. It means I'm only going to keep streaming. So I'm a California attorney. I do workers' compensation. I practice personal injury law. I do automobile accidents. I do court litigation. I do administrative law. I help people with wage and hour claims. I help people with disabilities. I help people put in insurance claims. I help with all kinds of issues. So if you live in California, you need help from an attorney, you need to seek out attorney representation, you potentially get some advice, dial 866-NAPOLEON or visit my website, www.napoleonlaw.com. I'm going to go ahead and type those things into the chat here just in case, you ever need any help. This is kind of a self-promoting thing here. I give out free consultations. It doesn't mean you're going to have a case. It just means that maybe you need help. Yes. Okay. So that is going to end the stream for this morning. This is Alexander Napolion, attorney at large, goes live every day, every weekday at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. discussing a current event from a legal perspective, taking your questions in the chat. Looking at the chat right now, doesn't appear that I have anybody watching that's going to ask me a question, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop. Okay. So every day at 10 a.m., every weekday, that's Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., I will be going live to discuss a current event from a legal perspective and to take your questions in the chat. Remember, it's not legal advice. It's general in nature only. It's meant to entertain you. It's meant to broaden your perspective, to change your perspective, to get a different perspective on a current event from a legal perspective. I'm a California attorney, just kind of going over the situation day by day, going over important things that you want to hear about. So that's going to conclude the stream. I'll see you all back here at 4 p.m. for my afternoon stream. I'll have another topic to discuss. And until then,